They say Kansas is flatter than a pancake, but did you know Kansas has its own Badlands? On today's episode of Geography in the Wild, we're on location to show you Western Kansas is way more interesting than you might think. At this point, you're probably thinking, I've driven through Kansas and it is flat. And didn't scientists mathematically prove that whole flatter than a pancake thing? From towering chalk formations to dramatic badlands to a hidden oasis prized by Native Americans, we're exploring these hidden gems out here on the high plains. And later, we'll visit the highest point in Kansas where we'll finally debunk that absurd flatter than a pancake theory. Our first stop is Monument Rocks, a 7-mile detour down dirt roads. These chalk formations rise almost 100 feet out of the high plains. Located on private property, we are permitted to respectfully explore these incredible formations. I walk among the buttes and through the arches, admiring this almost alien landscape formed millions of years ago when this area was part of an inland sea covering much of North America. What places come to mind when you think of Badlands? Maybe South Dakota or Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota, but there are pockets of Badlands scattered throughout the western United States, including right here in Kansas. Created from the same ancient chalk that formed nearby Monument Rocks, here erosion has taken a completely different form. Hiking among the 100-foot-tall cliffs and spires, Little Jerusalem Badlands feels like stepping into a far-off place. As the many interpretive signs show, Little Jerusalem Badlands is a haven for native plants and animals taking refuge from the windy high plains. Lake Scott State Park is home to the ruins of El Cuartelejo. It was the northernmost Pueblo and the only known Pueblo constructed in Kansas. This 7-room structure was likely built before 1680 by Taos Pueblo, who were fleeing Spanish oppression in New Mexico. Hidden within the Ladder Creek Canyon, this area was an oasis from the harsh conditions of the high plains. Today, it's a man-made lake used for recreation, but the natural springs that fed Ladder Creek provided fresh water for the Native Americans who took refuge here and made it their home. Lake Scott State Park is also our home base for this trip, and we'll be back later to camp for the night. All right, folks, we've had a busy day. We've visited sites of geographical and historical interest, but now it's getting late in the day. And before we go back to the campground, how about I reward myself with a craft beer? So let's head inside and have one. Hidden Trail Brewery here in Garden City, Kansas. I've been here once before. They've got great beer. Let's go inside. Hidden Trail IPA. Delicious. I'm back at the campground at Lake Scott State Park, and if you're new here, let me just give you a quick view of the Minivan camper. This is a 2023 Honda Odyssey, and I've got it here. Well, let me first show you the campsite. I've been here once before. This is a large campground. There's actually a bunch of different sections, and as you can see, there's only one other family here in this section of the campground. So I've got it pretty much to myself, even though it's a Friday night. And you can see great, beautiful golden hour on the other side of the lake here. But like I said, let's check out the minivan. This is not a full tour. I have full tours videos on my channel, and if that's what you're interested in, check them out. At the moment, I've got the windows down and the screens up. It was in the 80s today. It's just starting to cool down, so I want as much ventilation as possible. I've even got the rear hatch open and the screen there. So let's get a better view of the inside. When I'm traveling solo, I've got my fridge here in the front passenger seat, sort of jammed in there. Can't easily move, but I can easily open up the fridge to get at items. There's my battery, and here is the living area. Well, that's the sleeping area, and that's what I call the living room. I can sit there. At the moment, let me hop in. Oh, I've even got a fan running there to help get as much circulation as possible right now. Here, I'll put it in widescreen. So yeah, I sleep here when I'm solo. I've got the bed set up there, and I keep this third row seat up when I'm solo. When my wife is with me, I've got a double bed set up, and there we basically just use the minivan for sleeping, and it's great. We absolutely love it. So this will be my view when I go to bed tonight. Let's get the morning started with a little coffee and a view. Good morning. I had a great night camping here at Lake Scott, and now before we leave Kansas, I'm going to bring you to a place that is both the highest mountain in Kansas and, trust me, unlike any mountain you've ever been to. So let's get started. As we take the drive out to the highest point in the state, let's revisit that whole Kansas is flatter than a pancake scientific study. That study was done as a spoof. Yes, they backed it up with real math, but if you use that same mathematical formula, it would conclude Colorado is flatter than a pancake, and we all know that's not true. To the casual observer, Kansas is flat. That's partly because there's so few trees and you can see for miles in every direction. But the truth is, Kansas isn't even in the top 5 of flattest states. It's ranked 7th behind these states. If you've been watching the footage behind me, you've seen Mount Sunflower, the highest point in Kansas, is as flat as it gets. How can it be? That's because Kansas is tilted, with the lowest elevation all the way on the east side of the state, and as you go west, the elevation slowly increases until you reach Mount Sunflower at 4,039 feet. That's the highest point, right on the border of Colorado. For more geography in the wild, click here, and for something completely different, click here for my inspirational short films.